Thank you very much, Pedro, for joining us today. You've seen the development from Blue Like an Orange since basically its birth in Washington. We even discussed the name Blue Like an Orange even before Blue Like an Orange ever existed. So I'm very happy to have you with us tonight. Let me ask you the first question. Seen from the rest of the world, the Latin America region has suffered more than most from COVID. How do you see the potential for rebound going forward?
Well, good evening, Bertrand. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I've always been very excited about what you were doing with Blue as an Orange, and it's happy to talk to you about Latin America, which is an area that I've been passionate about. I think COVID hit Latin America after 5 years of very sluggish growth, with very weak institutional and governmental structure, and particularly with very weak health systems and social protection structures. So that actually led, in a way, to very dramatic lockdowns as a way to kind of protect societies. But still, even with lockdowns, we've had mortality rates that are huge in the region and an overall decrease in the economy that's among the biggest in the world, which is in 2020 was about 7.7%. Different governments did different mechanisms and used a lot of fiscal capacity and debt in order to maintain social welfare programs and be able to do special emergency transfers, keep elements of the economy working. But the lockdowns were pretty big. I don't see Latin America recovering in 2021 that quickly. And going back to the pre-pandemic growth, I think will probably be something that we'll see towards the end of 2023. But the fundamental thing is that the pandemic hit in a moment in which a region was growing very slow compared to the rest of the developing world, and with very weakened politics and social infrastructure.
Okay, I mean, we've taken a broad macro view of the region. Do you think there are countries that deserve a particular attention because of their capacity to do better than others?
It's been kind of difficult to do that because I think the politics of the region have suddenly hit what were the darlings, which is Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Chile have been severely impacted politically. So almost in tandem, sometimes related, sometimes not related to COVID, but probably all made greater by COVID. The countries that I think everybody was betting on, kind of Pacific-leaning countries, are now, from a political point of view, much riskier than they were. That doesn't mean at all that they're not opportunities. Those countries continue to present kind of this hybrid model where you've got tons of opportunities to growth, you've got fairly vibrant private sectors, infrastructure and logistics that make things work, but clearly you have levels of inequality that have grown because of COVID and political uncertainty that's now beginning to peak from where we were. I mean, a case where you get this particularly shake is Colombia, which we always saw as a very stable, very low volatility economy. Has had pretty large, like 7% drop in 2020 of the economy, and now is facing a political crisis that is the most challenging it's faced probably in its recent history. How does it make it out? It's difficult. What got him into the crisis was fiscal measures that the government wanted to introduce to deal with the economic consequences of COVID. They were badly implemented, badly sold. That led to the beginning of social unrest, and then a lot of other grievances have come in. I still believe that Colombia, if it can get over some of the politics, still continues to be one of those countries where the very hardworking society, very good private sector, and fairly good infrastructure. Same thing goes to Peru. So I'm not at all negative on economies that were the good economies. Probably a step back a little bit of Mexico. The Mexico situation is unraveling negatively. López Obrador, is taking the country down a path, that is very dangerous. By the way, I think dangerous overall, even as a challenge to the United States. I'm not sure if he's capable of taking a full advantage of the near sourcing opportunities that come from people wanting to disconnect from China and from the benefits of the U.S., Mexico, Canadian uh, deal that was struck during the Trump administration. So that's a challenge. Then when you go to the other side of Latin America, I think Argentina is probably a place that there's almost no hope. I think the politics are getting really bad with a bad economic recipe. Just it's really a judicial system breaking down. That's several. Brazil obviously continues to be a case of its own, completely different. I think it just cannot be evaluated with the rest of Latin America. They've put in a lot of money to defend the economy during COVID, but COVID has had disastrous effect because as a pandemic has been dealt really badly by the Bolsonaro government. But that's a mixed case. It's a country full of opportunities. Will need to come back. Obviously, the issue becomes politics in 2022, the possibility of Lula coming back, the polarization of that society as Bolsonaro tries to hold on. So I think that's the one where I would hold on, but has the most opportunities, and I would not lose any. I wouldn't lose any hope for Colombia, Peru, and Chile, despite the political turmoil. I'll continue to focus on those three economies. As a matter of fact, even the political turmoil might present better opportunities, cheaper opportunities. The need for capital will be there, and I think these are countries that will eventually rebound quite quickly.
Yeah, that's what we are seeing actually. I mean, these are countries where times are difficult. I mean, entrepreneurs emerge and can make a real difference. We've seen a lot of cases where you have people which are facing the hill and making, I mean, really breakthrough. That's one of the best experience we have had over the past few years. Just because you're very familiar with that, although it's definitely part of our excluded list, could you say a few words about two countries which are of particular interest, if not for investors, but for the general public, Venezuela and Cuba?
Well, Venezuela is probably dead as a country. The model under which it relied is as an oil-dependent economy, very different than the rest of the region. It's almost like Saudi Arabia with a democracy, and now with dictatorship. But the problem is that the model, which relied on oil and a massive, the largest oil reserves in the world, now is broken. I mean, the entire oil infrastructure is collapsed. The politics have collapsed. Security has collapsed. And the rebuilding of this country is highly uncertain, not possible within the regime without a change of government. And even if you have a change of government, the first challenge will be security in order to guarantee governance. And that would be a very big challenge. I think a lot of the problems that Colombia was associated with, guerrillas out of control, the government and having full sovereignty over large chunks of the territory, now define Venezuela. I would say that for a very long time, the opportunities of Venezuela are going to be absolutely the wrong kind of opportunities, and the people who will be coming to Venezuela are probably the wrong kind of money. So I would just put Venezuela in the back burner. You will have enough notice as to when it's time to come in, because you will have a new government. That government will consolidate itself. There will be an election. Even the shortest transition, if we started today, would probably be 2 years for a new election, and that's probably the moment that once you come in the meantime, I think the biggest challenge of a transition government would be guaranteeing control over the full territory and making it secure for transit, for investment, just for regular living. So put Venezuela on the side. Cuba continues to be a conundrum. Clearly, the U.S. administration has a lot to do with what happens in Cuba. I don't see the Biden team willing to go head on like the Obama team did. The Obama opening actually died during the Obama years. There's still forces alive in Cuba that want to maintain the system as it is and don't want to do the kind of reforms that requires to make Cuba a good story. So Cuba is right now very much stuck. COVID has hit it hard because it used to have 4 million tourists. That was a big part of the economy. Now it's not there. In Cuba, the new government, the full establishment of Diaz-Canel, is going to have to make very tough decisions. And that decisions of reforming and moving towards what they were trying to do, which was the Vietnamese model, presents a huge risk for the hardliners who believe that you cannot have an open economy so close to the United States without the United States eventually taking over the country and changing the political system. So that challenge between reformist and old dinosaurs is still very much present and makes Cuba a very slow progress. Again, you will see the signs when it's time to invest, when somebody is willing to take much more risk and announce reforms that are needed but are very risky in order for the status quo to survive.
Thank you. And the last question to conclude our short discussion. If I tell you blue like an orange, what do you see today?
I've always seen it since the first day we sat down and talked about this, and the use of this for the company. I think it's a real clear and very courageous, by the way, message that you want to shake the system, the conventional wisdom, that you want to do something very different, that you want people to see things and approach investments in a different way. And that's honestly, I mean, not because I'm talking to you, it's just because that was the initial reaction when we're discussing the name and you said, what if we call it blue as an orange? And I was like, yeah, why not? I mean, this is with what you want to do, what your objectives are, it should start with the name. And I think after a few years, I think that choice was right. And I think with what's going forward, sustainability, change, digital transformation and all that, I think you picked the right name. And I think the time will prove that it's a right model.
Thank you very much, Pedro.
Okay, thank you. Good night.